weeks after Virginia's June primary election, a lawsuit has been filed in one of the most contentious races. Peter Alexander, who lost a shot at a Lynchburg City Council seat by just a few dozen votes, is trying to get the results thrown out. WDBJ7's Layla Mitchell has been covering this race since the beginning. She breaks down this latest twist.
Yeah, I'm standing right outside of the Lynchburg Circuit Court where Peter Alexander filed this lawsuit that I have right here in my hands. Now, Alexander, who lost the primary election by just 33 votes, says that 125 absentee ballots were collected but not counted. Here's what we know so far. The outcome of the primary election, according to the Lynchburg Electoral Board, is that incumbent Vice Mayor Chris Feraldi won with a total of 1,042 votes, compared to 1,009 votes for Peter Alexander. Feraldi defeating Alexander for the Ward 4 council seat. In his lawsuit, Alexander alleges that 125 absentee ballots, which were received by the Lynchburg Registrar's Office, do not appear to have been counted. The suit cites records from the Virginia Department of Elections detailing the status of every ballot cast. These records show the votes as marked, indicating they were received on time, but the status was never updated to confirm if they were processed and counted. Marty Mischens, a Republican city council member who helped out with Alexander's campaign, provided an affidavit stating that he believes the ballot tracking process in the race to be unusual. He also questions whether every ballot was counted. The Lynchburg Registrar responded to these allegations, issuing a statement that they remain confident in every lawful vote that was counted on June 18th. He also says they welcome the review process and are ready to assist Lynchburg Circuit Court in its jurisdiction. Chris Feraldi, the winning candidate, also sent me a statement, calling the lawsuit a, quote, an unserious challenge over a paperwork mistake that seeks to disenfranchise dozens of voters and lawfully cast ballots. As the legal proceedings continue, the Lynchburg Circuit Court will review the case to determine the validity of Alexander's claims. I also reached out to Alexander for comment and haven't received a response. Reporting in Lynchburg, Layla Mitchell, WDBJ 7.